Welcome back, guys. So, moving on from where we left off yesterday. What I have done, just pop that back on to keep it safe, is we painted up both the undercarriage and the engine. And I have to say they both look really nice. Now, what I've done, once those paints were dried, is I used some Citadel Nuln oil. So it's basically just a wash, an acrylic wash. And I have washed the undercarriage. And I've also put some bare metal foil on the oleos just to make them pop out, because, well, they shiny metal in real life, so we put shiny metal on them. We also put a wash on the flap aperture and the upper nacelle, and we've put a wash here on this nacelle, and also we've put a wash on the engine. Now, the only thing I'm worried about with the engine is it may be a little too dark. So it's just drying, but what I might actually do is go back in with the dry brush and just highlight the cylinders just a little bit, just to make them pop a little bit more. Because if you look at the engine itself, it's actually quite a big aperture, and even with the prop on, you're still going to see quite a bit of it. So that's something I'm going to do just in a little moment. So that's how I finished the undercarriage and engine. Oh yeah, also what I've done is I've painted the reduction gearbox, the braces, and all the I'm assuming they're rocker tubes for the push rods, gloss black. And I tried to avoid those with the Nuln oil, but it's just knocked it back. It's done good for highlighting the ribs on the cylinders, but it's just knocked it back a little too much, I think. So I just need to bring that silver back up a bit. So I'll do that in a moment. The main thing is, now that we've got this part ready, we can actually get it in the wing. We can get the wing joint together. Now, I just super glued this on with a small bit of super glue, and with a little bit of tension, bang, it's gone. And then that will just pop straight in to the wing. Now, some might say that I've made it too dirty. Fair point. You could argue that. I would say these things on operational frontline squadrons will have gotten dirty, especially if they've been operating on grass strips. So it comes down to modeller's taste. And my taste is to have a little bit of grime in the wheel well. But it does look really quite nice. Once it's all together, what we're going to have to do is mask this up effectively when it comes to painting. So that pops in nice, and then we've got to think about getting the wings together. And what I'm going to do is show you how to get one wing together, and I'll do the other one off camera. So bearing in mind we had this set up when we were setting the angle on the wing, it shouldn't be too bad just to get back together and get this wing together. But obviously when you paint stuff, it all gets a little extra micron or two of interference in, so we might need to clean some of the stuff away. Doesn't seem to be too bad. So the first thing we need to do is actually get this spar and the front spar glued in. And for that I'll use just standard extra thin, because I don't want it to, the quick set stuff might go off a little too quick. So we're just going to use standard extra thin and run it in. And you want to put a generous amount in, but you don't want to put enough that it's going to end up dribbling out and you end up with marks, glue marks where you don't want them. Right, so got that in, and then we can press it home. Make sure that both the wing spars are engaged properly where they ought to be, that this front bulkhead is engaged properly, which it is. It's a really good fit. The only one that's struggling a little bit, and I think that's because the wing's a little bit flat, is this one on the rear. So we just want to clip and hold. What I'll do is I'll get a couple of clothes pegs to do that. I'll wrestle them out the bottom of my drawer. So clothes peg there, clothes peg there, and that will give us a really good solid joint, which is what we want. Right, so we just need to leave that a moment just to cure up. So whilst that's curing up, what I can do is we can show you just applying some of the non-oil on the other parts. Now this stuff will thin down with water. It'll also thin down with Future, but I'll give you a glossy finish. We want that matte finish. So what I tend to do is just have a little bit of thinners just off to one side on a clean piece of the mat. I'm going to get a brush that holds quite a bit of paint. This is a number 6 brush, just a synthetic brush. Soak the brush with the thinners and then mix it with the non-oil in the cap. You don't need a whole heap of it. And just start one end and work your way over. And all you want to do is apply the oil to all the parts of the undercarriage bay. If you're using Tamiya X28 to thin this, just be mindful you can't work it too much on parts because you're making it a little hotter than it would normally be because you put thinners in it. And if your paints aren't really well cured, you could actually lead to reactivating them and destroying your paint finish. So be cautioned with that. Yes, it works really well with thinners, but if you're not careful, you can end up doing more harm than good. And you don't want a thick layer, in all honesty. You just want a moderate layer of this stuff. All it needs to do is run off the flats and capillary around all the raised detail. Gives a really nice grimy look. It highlights all the transitions in the undercarriage. It just gives that little extra detail that, you know, viewers of your model will want to see. And the other beauty is if you come back in, if you think it's too heavy and it's not too much colour or brightness off the metalwork, you can just come back in and dry brush and that'll lift that finish beautifully. So I'm quite happy with a slightly grimy finish, so I'm happy with that. So hopefully you can see very, very quickly we've got an overall wash on this part. It's toned it down, it's added contrast, it's highlighted, changes the level, just put a bit of interest in. Right, engine time, again, we'll give it a little wash, but I'll try and be selective where I'm putting it. So I just want to run it in here in the lower sections of this. So we're catching the cylinders. You don't want a lot on your brush, just a modicum. Avoiding the push rod tubes. Just painting between the cylinders. And then we'll paint the back as well, just to tone down that dry brushing, give that engine that oily look, because radial engines leaked oil all the time, so it won't hurt having a nice sort of oily, grimy look on that. So that's how you get to there, but it does knock it down quite a bit. There is a bit of brightness in there, but when it is dry, which the other engine pretty much will be, what we can do is we can do some detail dry brushing. And when I say detail dry brushing, it literally is using a fine brush like this and applying the dry brush silver paint very, very precisely. All we're wanting to do is just liven up that highlight we've got in on the cylinder heads. I must get a new chair at some point, it's not so creaky. So a little bit of kitchen towel, knock that paint off there. There's the one that's dry. So all we want to do is come in and just very carefully, selectively go about the areas. If you need to put more paint on, put a little bit more paint on, but just use a fine brush which holds a good point. You can just come in here, and it is just literally just a couple of strokes over that part, and that will lift that part. And increase that contrast in colour, which then when it goes in the model and you're looking down the engine bay, you're going to see it. I said radial engines tend to be focal points on aircraft. They attract the attention of the viewer, so you need to give them something to look at. We're all magpies really, so shiny stuff is what we like looking at. Shiny stuff and details. It's just what the human eye is conditioned to look at. So all we want to do is just help the eye find the detail. You can see I'm putting hardly any paint on there whatsoever. Just avoiding everything except the cylinder. Just coming in and gently adding a little bit of silver just to lift that colour. Doesn't take long. I'm not focusing on getting every bit painted, just enough to bring the life back into that engine. And hopefully you can see there under the light the cylinders are just sparkling away, and the rest of it's looking nicely weathered but muted, and we've got that interest back in the engine. And when that goes into the cowling, that's going to look absolutely fantastic. So that took all of 2 minutes, if that. And that's how simple detail painting should be, because if it's anything more than that, I for one tend to lose interest. I like to be a reasonably productive modeler, and I do struggle sometimes if I end up having to paint or work on a model for a long time. As any of you who's been watching my Oshkosh and Abrams build will know, it's nearly finished, by the way. If you want a sneak peek, I can pan the camera up. It's just there, back of the bench, ready to go. So that's a 6-month build. That's a long time to commit for any model. Don't let it be said that I like to rush models, but I do like to get ahead on them. Right, in the time that we've done the undercarriage and refreshed the engine, This part here has pretty much welded itself to the wing, which is really good. So we can now actually get on and look at test fitting the top again. And I found with this kit the locating pins have been excellent. They've gone together beautifully. So what we've got to do is figure out how we're going to do this. Now, I'm of the opinion that we should focus our main efforts of gluing on the largest area of the wing first, and then we can come back in and glue the stub wing together. The one that's really going to be essential is the engine. Have to get the engine together effectively. So we're going to turn to our good old friend Revell contactor, because we want a good strong glue in there. And what I'm also going to do, just to aid it a little bit, we'll just come in and we'll just scrape off the paint on this wing spar and here, and that'll just help. It's not something I do usually because Revell contactor can burn through paints, but we've put quite a bit of paint and wash and stuff on this, so I want to give it the best chance we can of not only seating but also sticking. Blow away any residue. So, got the bulk of the paint off. We're going to come in with a Revell contactor. Now, again with this glue, all you need to do is get the flow going and it will continue to flow. You don't need to squeeze the tube too much. If you squeeze the tube too much, all you're going to do is overdose the glue and get it everywhere you don't want it. So just let the glue do its thing. Right, we'll glue the front here as well. And what we'll also do is we'll look to this wing here, and we're just going to run it along this joint here, because we're going to get pegs on the back of the wing. And then we'll run around the surface joint here. And because we're gluing the large surface and not the inner surface, they'll splay open. This tube is actually nearly finished, which is a miracle. It's been using it for years. I'm having to tip it up to get stuff out, which is, there we go. So, right, so we've got the surfaces glued. We'll just line them up and then make sure I'm in camera, that's good. Line them up and bang, straight in. Get that middle section done properly first and then work your way along the wing, pressing them together. We're not worried about this front joint here, we'll get this glued after. All we want is for the engine nacelle to line up properly and effectively. So with the two pegs we had, we'll get them on the trailing edge. I'll get some more. The more pegs we have, the better chance we have of getting a really good bond, but also it won't move. And you can grip it on the trailing edge because we're gripping down to that solid strip. I remember having something like this when I built the Revell Catalina, and I had pegs all down and I had the actual wing pegged to my workboard because I wanted to make sure that all the panels were level and flat. So I have no problem in using lots of pegs because I have plenty of pegs. Front of the wing we're going to tape, and then that leaves the front of the nacelle. What we can do is we could try an F-clamp, but I think tape will probably do. So I'm just going to grab my 6mm Tamiya tape. First of all, we'll tape right at the root of the wing. So you're going to hold it in place, keep tension on it, and then roll it over. And that's gone together really well. Right. Now we can actually move that peg up there, and we can move that peg up there, because we're gripping just the back spar that we put in. So we really just have this front piece to do, and the beauty of this is we can come in from the back. So we can just hold the wing together and then just go in with the needle. And glue that joint. Hold it together. And we'll get some tape on that too. And we've lost a peg. Sometimes they do ping off. That's why I use plenty of them. So we'll get a couple of bits of tape. So keep the tension on it. Tape up that wing, and we'll tape up at the root as well. And it won't take too long for this glue to go off either. And what we can do, if we just want to aid that bonding, we can just come in, just wick in a bit of Tamiya extra thin, and that'll just help any joints that are needing a little bit of extra stickage to get stuck. So last bit of tape we'll put over the front of the engine, and then we'll set that wing aside to dry. So just hold it down, pull it tight, fold it under, and that is the wing gluing. And I know it looks like it's belt and braces, but it's best to get it right and than it is to not use enough and have a problem. Okay, one last thing before I look at joining up the other one, because this is now dry, nearly. What you'll notice in there is we've got a big run. And what we can do is just come in with a brush and then just tap in motion, just blend it in. It's the one thing to watch out with non-oil, is to make sure it doesn't pool. Otherwise you end up with just a big blob and it doesn't look very nice, and it'll ruin detail. But on the whole, that's looking pretty good. So what we need to do is just make the oleos look a little bit better. And to do that, I used some trusty aluminium tape. And this is simply ticky tape, and it's the stuff that's used for jointing. You can use it for jointing aluminium backed plasterboard, but a lot of people use it for jointing Kingspan type foam insulation. It's very, very sticky, and it looks absolutely gorgeous when you put it on an oleo. So I did take the time to measure the size of the oleo, and it's just a little over 3 mm. So all I do is get my steel rule and we'll create a straight edge. And even if I'd cut, which I had done before, I always like cutting a fresh straight edge and we can measure from it. So 0.5mm engineer's pencil, set the rule up to the edge we just cut, mark in 1, 2, 3.5 there, 1, 2, 3.5 there. So now we know our width. Set the rule back down. You can hold one of the pencil marks with the pencil and that will stop it sliding. Once you're happy with the setup, come in with your blade. I'm just using a number 23 curved blade. It just happens to be what's in the scalpel. And it cuts away nicely like that. Don't worry if it looks a little wavy, we'll burnish that out when we come to put it on the oleo. Right, offer it up just to make sure you've not overdone it, which I may have done. So we just need to trim a little bit off. It's probably more like 3mm rather than 3.5. So just set the ruler on and we're just going to take a fraction off this and nothing more. There we go. Now that we've got the, just try it, offer up again. Yeah, that's pretty good. So what we need to do is just peel off the backing. And it is not easy when you cut it with a scalpel because there's no edges to, as such, to get the tweezers underneath it. And you need good eyesight. There we go. So don't peel it all off, just a little bit, fold it back over. There's our working edge. In an ideal world, you start on the inside and wrap it around so the joint ends up back in the inside, but you come round from the front to back, and it just makes it easier to burnish the joint away in such a way that you don't see it, because the chances are you're going to overlap it with where you started. So just pop it in, give it a rub down, and then with a little bit of tension just run it around. Before you get all the way around, you just want to come in with a sharp pair of scissors. There's actually a bit of tape still on there from when I did the last ones. And then you just want to, keeping it square, go in and cut. Don't throw that tape away because you're going to need it for the other side. Right. Holding the oleo strut carefully, just to support it, then we can come in with these tweezers and gently press it down. And if you notice, these tweezers are stainless steel and they've got a nice rounded profile on them. They're ideal for gently burnishing that joint down to minimize any lip. And you'd be hard pressed to see where the joint is once it's all burnished in. The other thing I find with the stainless steel tweezers is they quite nicely polish up the aluminium. So second one, again we just come in with that piece that we retained, just position it to where you want it, make sure it's square, give it a little burnish so it's gripped, and then wrap it around. And you can see why a roll of tape will last you a long, long time. Trim off the excess. And then just come in and just burnish it down. And if you can cut it so the joint is on the inside, you'll never see it, especially once you get the wheel on. So then all we need to do is just take a moment and just lightly press. You're not trying to rub a polish on it. All you want to do is use the rounded steel just to gently burnish the softer aluminium, and you'll find it'll just help to bring a shine to that aluminium. And there we go. There's your oily legs, absolutely shining, just really, really nice. And what we can do is we can get one of our tyres that we've painted up. That's had anthracite on it now, nice and grimy. Got the hub there, and we can just test fit that. Bearing in mind the hub goes to the outside of the wing, and these wheels fit really, really nice into these undercarriage. And that's our undercarriage. You can just see those oleos absolutely shining. Really quite nice. So that's how that's done. So what I'm going to do next then, well, I'm going to get that piece of undercarriage in that wing there, and then once they've dried up, we can come back and look at getting the wings joined to the fuselage, the tail fins joined to the fuselage, and really moving forward with this build. As with that engine, I'm also going to just touch in a little bit of silver on the cylinder heads just to lift the engine and add a bit of brightness back. And then we can get the engines in on the cells, and we can actually look at how we're going to paint the collector ring and the exterior camouflage on these engines. So there's quite a bit of detail work to do just on the engine nacelles, but the actual main build is coming along nicely. So I'm going to crack on and do that, and we'll come back once the wings are cured up, and we'll actually get this aircraft together and push the build on. So see you again soon.